Hello, and welcome to the Covert Nerd Podcast. Today we'll be discussing passing on nerd hobbies, then a fun podcast called Daydream Instruction Manual, and finally, the fabulous comic book, Invincible. It's interesting how popular nerd hobbies are passed down to the next generation. They seem to be passed down more now than they were in the 60s and 70s. I find it fascinating how pop culture from the 80s is and has been reused in some cases multiple times. You see retro podcasts, you see retro cons for various pop culture hits from the 80s like Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, Transformers. It's popular to collect everything from the 80s. For example, there's one guy that collects MOTU figures. He collects only the Mossman figure and no others. That's all he collects. One theory I have about this is maybe when I say we, I guess I should clarify, I mean Gen Xrs, or people from ages about 35 to 55, are more open about the things we played with when we were kids, more than maybe our parents did. We seem to be more excited about them than our parents were. It seems when they grew up, they put their toys away and they put them away for good. For us, yes, we put them away for a time being, but then we got them back out as we got older. We aren't afraid to talk about them in front of our kids and our friends and our coworkers. We aren't afraid to play with them in front of our kids, and we encourage our kids to play with them too. Our kids know what we like. For example, the other day, my kids were helping an older lady clean out the house of her brother, who unfortunately had passed away recently. For several days, they were bringing stuff up from the basement and bedrooms out into the main room in front of her for her to go through. She had 3 categories to put the items that they were bringing in. She had the sell pile, the giveaway pile, and the throwaway pile. My kids were being kids, and of course they were going through the boxes of stuff that they were bringing up. I wasn't there, but my son was excited one day when I came home from work. He said, "Hey, Dad, I saw these old board games, and one of them was the old 1961 Stratego board game, and I thought you might like it." So I asked the lady if we could have them. Now, for those of you who don't know, Stratego is a strategy board game for 2 players. It's on a 10 by 10 square board. Each player controls 40 pieces representing individual officer ranks in an army. The pieces have Napoleonic insignias on them, and the object of the game is to capture the opponent's flag, or to capture so many pieces that the opponent cannot make any further moves. So anyway, she said she was going to ask her son if he wants this game plus a few others, and if he doesn't, then we can have them. So a few days later go by, and what do you know? They brought Stratego home along with a couple of other old games because the son didn't want them. I was excited to have these very old board games from the early 60s, late 50s, and then I thought how cool it was, though, that my kids know how nerdy I am, and when they saw something like that, they immediately thought of me. And the fact that they thought of me in the first place was pretty special. That's the good that can come from recycling things from our past. We can reconnect with our past and connect with those in our present. Of course, as soon as they got the games home, my kids wanted to play. And we did. And we had a blast. Now, some may balk at the rebooting of 80s franchises. To some extent, I agree. However, the older generation may not like how it's being redone, but it gets us to talk to the new generation about our past. It's like in the Back to the Future movie when Marty McFly's dad tells him how he and his mom met. But when Marty goes back, he finds out that he met his mom because he was a peeping Tom. Now, when these reboots come out, we can tell our kids the truth, how it was exactly done when we were young. We can tell them what we were thinking when we saw the original TV show or played with that original action figure, how that made us feel, how we behaved. What did we do with it? We can tell them that we went to our neighbor's house and set up the figures in the background like a war and the stories that go along with them. We can talk to them about the friends we had, the neighbors we had, and what we did with those neighbors with our stuff. What was going on in the world at the time we were playing with these figures and watching these TV shows. Again, it's not just the item that's important. It's the memories that are attached to the item. Yes, we sound like old curmudgeons when we say, "Back in my day, our He-Man wore a fur diaper and we liked it." Try to keep the negative comments to a minimum. How about instead say, cool that they brought these figures back. I played with the original MOTU figures, and hey, I really like Trap Jaw, because you could change the different weapons and ... and go into your story about Trap Jaw. Most of the kids I've met actually like seeing some of that retro stuff. For example, one day I showed my kids the old combat game on the Atari 2600. You know, the one with the two tanks that start at opposite ends of the screen, and the object is to shoot the other one a certain amount of times or to win, or a certain amount of time to win. The graphics are extremely basic by today's standards, but the fun is just as good. However, I admit the replay value is kind of short-lived. For a short period of time, my kids liked it, and occasionally, since then, they will ask to play it. Will Wheaton on his blog told a similar story about the time he dug out his old Atari 2600 from the closet. He hooked it up, and his kids spent the next several days playing his old carts. I'm sure he told the stories to his kids about the times he played with those same games with his buddies. Next time we get excited to complain about them remaking something, maybe that's the time you go to your closet and bring out your old stuff and share it with the younger people in your life and talk to them about what you were doing with them, what was going on, and how much fun you had with them, instead of complaining about them re-releasing them. Now it's podcast shout-out time. I'm very excited about this one, Daydream Instruction Manual. It is a podcast by Eddie and the gang, and they talk about a variety of things from comics to movies, both current and from the past. They even did a Christmas special written by Eddie himself and performed by the other members of the Podcast Arcade crew. It was so cool. Written by them. It's truly authentic. The whole podcast itself is entertaining and informative at the same time. Go to daydreaminstructionmanual.com, subscribe, and let me know what you think about the podcast. Again, I am very excited about this comic. Like I said, I talked about it in a previous episode when I just got started reading it, but I finally finished all 144 issues of Robert Kirkman's Invincible. It took me about 3 weeks. On a side note here, I've found that I've done a lot more binge reading lately of comic books. I think it's because, for the most part, I haven't really read a lot of comics in the last 20 years, and just recently, in the last 2 years, got back into them again. So for that reason, I think I have a lot of catching up to do. So when I see a series, I just start from the beginning and just cruise all the way through. So anyway, from the beginning, Invincible is a real page-turner. Now, I think the reason I like it, this is my opinion, is the story is very tight. Now, what I mean is that the story stays for the most part about the main character, Mark Grayson, and how he deals with being a teenage alien superhero. I know this is going to sound controversial, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I really don't appreciate comics that try to force social issues into their storylines or into their characters. It doesn't feel right, and it doesn't seem to fit. Now, if the subject fits, then fine. For example, having Superman address the Me Too movement would appear to be forced. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't ever. I'm saying don't try to force something to fit in a current narrative or a current title that it just doesn't work. With Invincible, in my opinion, trying to spend several issues on a subject like that would be tough to do. Now, they do touch on controversial subjects like abortion and homosexuality, but it's fairly minor, and I like that because it fits the overall narrative and the tone and the rhythm of the story. So when they brought up those two subjects, for example, it actually fit the storyline, and it didn't appear to be forced. Robert Kirkman is the author and does an excellent job with the storytelling, throws in a few Easter eggs in the book too. For example, in Invincible issue number 20, they mention a dimension where a virus kills all the males on Earth, referring back to Brian K. Vaughan's Why the Last Man, which I mentioned in a previous episode. Highly recommend that one. Anyway, it's a great title that I recommend, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you read Invincible and you like it, let me know. I would love to hear what you think about it. So find me on Instagram, Twitter, email me, however you want to communicate, and let me know what you think about it. I want to do a quick shout out to a few listeners. The girls over at That One Time I Was Abducted, Jamie and Bree. They're awesome. They're funny. Check out their podcast. I highly recommend it. You'll love it. They also usually do some Instagram live episodes that you can check out as well. So that one time I was abducted. And then last but not least, Not Your Pastor's podcast. They've listened and done some shout outs for me, so I want to return the favor. Check them out. Not Your Pastor's podcast. They're funny and entertaining and spiritual as well. If you want a shout out on the show, definitely hit me up on social media. Go to covertnerd.net to see where you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. You can email me, but simply go to covertnerd.net and find all the ways you can communicate, and let's get in touch and talk. I'm going to do a quick giveaway, so those of you that are still listening, you are the true dedicated fans. Nate Hamill, I have some art that I bought from Nate Hamill, and I want to give it away. So the first one to message me on Instagram or Twitter, tell me simply Nate Hamill Art, and I'll send it out to you. I've only got one, so the first one to do that wins. So thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate your time. It means a lot to me. I know you could be doing a lot of other things with your time, but you chose to listen to me. So thanks again, and until next time.